Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Taylor Combluzia, a mining analyst at Red Cloud Securities. Today's webinar features Grid Metals, which is focused on exploring and developing both lithium and nickel copper PGM projects in the Bird River Greenstone Belt in southeastern Manitoba. The company controls two major lithium properties with known high-grade lithium pegmatites, including Donner Lake, where a mineral resource estimate was released earlier this year, as well as Falcon West project. The company has also signed a toll milling MOU with the Tanko mine and has a binding lease agreement with the True North Gold Mill in Bissett for the production of lithium spodumene concentrate. I'd also note the company controls the Makwa Mayville nickel copper PGM cobalt project. Today I have with me on the webinar both Robin Dunbar, who's the President and Chief Executive Officer, as well as Brandon Smith, the Chief Development Officer at Grid Metals. Good to have you guys here with us today.
Thanks, Taylor.
Thanks. The format of today's webinar will be comprised of two parts. In the first part, Robin will provide an update on Grid Metals, and then in the second part, Brandon will join us and we'll take your questions live. So please send them in using the chat box and we'll get to as many as we can. I'll note that you can type them in at any point throughout today's presentation. So to start, I'll handle the disclosures and then we'll get into the presentation. So for Grid Metals, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this call. I would direct listeners to the cautionary note on page 2 of the Grid Metals corporate presentation located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities Inc., I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Please see our most recent research located on our website for Grid Metals specific disclosures. So with that out of the way, I'll turn it over to Robin to update you on Grid Metals and what you have to look forward to with the story.
Thanks very much, Taylor, and thanks everybody for joining. We're happy to give an update today about our lithium business in southeastern Manitoba. Just to jump into the highlights. We really just got into the lithium business in a meaningful way at the start of 2022, and things have moved pretty rapidly in that time. And we, like some other companies, we really saw the booming lithium business created by the demand for EVs, and we looked at the circumstances of the ground that we held in southeast Manitoba in our portfolio and thought it really made sense to see if we can unlock the value there. And the key asset that we had is the Donner Lake Lithium Project. And we, in less than 18 months, spent about $7 million and drilled off a close to 7 million ton resource, hard rock resource. And we published that resource in July. And then we also have further south, the Falcon West Lithium Project, and that's a belt scale project that has about a 1 kilometer core area with some very high lithium values and also cesium and tantalum, and so we believe this is a really prospective greenstone belt, not dissimilar to some of the large projects that you see in northern Quebec, and we're just working on permitting to get in there and do some work at Falcon West. We think what differentiates us from many other lithium companies is that, we're looking at ways to get in production quickly. And, partly by circumstance and some of our own making, we've identified two milling options in southeast Manitoba. One is with the Tanko mine. They have a 200,000 ton per annum mill that's about 35 kilometers from Donner Lake. And by circumstance, they're short on ore and are looking for other sources of toll milling ore. So we're working towards a definitive agreement with them. And then the second opportunity is that to the north of Donner Lake, the True North Gold Mill, which is in Bissett and accessible by road, was idle. And we're just finishing up a study there to look at the costs and timeline to convert the True North Mill to process lithium spodumene ore. So those two options we think are look more and more viable, and we're targeting initial production from our Donner Lake at Tanco sometime in 2025. We also have our nickel portfolio, nickel copper PGMs. It's moderate grade, open pitable. We have about 40 million tons. We've expanded our land base in the area, and it's something that we want to bring forward, but a little bit further down the road. So in the terms of the near term catalysts, we're working towards permitting for a bulk sample, which is the first step towards a mining operation. And we've completed a lot of drilling, but we plan to go back later this year and into next year and find more resource and make new discoveries, both at Donner and Falcon. And we're continuing to advance our project towards permitting and production. Here's our capital structure. Like many companies, we've been beaten up in the market lately. We have a market cap around $20 million. We have some really quality shareholders. Lithium Royalty Corp was a founding shareholder. They've transferred their share ownership to Warta Capital, who remain a supportive shareholder. And then we also added a very experienced group from Australia, which included AMCI, which is a private equity company that invests in mining. They're an extremely successful group, global group. Primero Engineering, which is the leading engineering group for process engineering for lithium mills all over the world, and we have some other institutional shareholders as well. Board of directors. We recently just added Grant McAdam from Warta Group, and Patrick Murphy is based in Sydney. He's with AMCI. And then Tom Meredith and Ted Munden, two longtime directors. Ted's an engineer. Tom's very experienced in the resource business. Dave Peck is VP Exploration. And Dave joined us. He came from most recently North American Palladium, where he's part of the management team that sold the business to Impala Platinum. We have a very experienced lithium group on the ground in Manitoba, headed up by Kerry Galaschuk, who is a longtime lithium geologist. And we're fortunate to have Brandon Smith joining us recently as our Chief Development Officer. And Brandon's quickly become a very important member of the management team, and he's helping to identify opportunities and expand our business. So we're happy with the team that we have, and we also have a growing team on the project side as well. Arsalan Talabzadeh is our mining engineer who's really heading up all our project development. Manitoba, we think, is a really good place to do business. It's traditionally, it's been a critical metals producer in the north, Thompson Nickel Belt. There's also the Snow Lake Flin Flon base metals district. And in the south, you have the Tanco mine, which has been producing lithium off and on since 1968. Manitoba is really keen to get into and expand their critical metals business. It's a traditionally an east-west transportation corridor in Canada, and also north-south into the U.S. And it has excellent infrastructure. All our projects are very close to road and power, and the 97% of the power in Manitoba comes from hydro, and at very low rates. So it's an excellent place to do business. They just elected a new government, and the new premier there, Wab Kinew, has expressed support for critical metals and development in Manitoba. The province recently announced a critical metal strategy, and we were asked. We were the sole industry participant to be asked to speak at the event, and there we are with Heather Stephenson, the former premier, and I think that was in part to our development of our lithium assets very quickly in Manitoba, and also the initiative we've made towards revitalizing the Set camp, and we think that many of the initiatives that are in place in Manitoba will continue going forward. So here's a map of southeast Manitoba, and if I can just use the cursor here, there's the city of Winnipeg, which is the provincial capital for those of you not that familiar with Manitoba. And there's a road access up to our Donner Lake project. And here's the Tanco mine, which is about 35 kilometers south. And then there's a highway that goes up here, and there's the True North Mill. So Donner Lake is strategically situated between our two toll milling options, and we think that this is going to be part of our overall business, which is really to establish the lithium business in Southeast Manitoba. The next greenstone belt down from the world famous Tanco Greenstone Burnick Lake Greenstone Belt is the Falcon Greenstone Belt that hosts Falcon Lake, and here we have a large property and a very interesting showing at Falcon West, and so we have the lion's share of that and significant position in this greenstone belt to the north. So that's really the area that we want to concentrate on. We have looked at some other opportunities in lithium in Ontario, but our basic focus is here at Southeast Manitoba and growing the business there. Donner Lake is it's a 75%, 25% joint venture with Warta Capital. We're the operator and have 75%, and Falcon West we own 100%, and most of the property has no royalty. So we have a very solid land position and base to grow the business here. The resource and metallurgy, Donner Lake is the beauty of the pegmatites that we've identified. The resource, 6.8 million tons, is by global standards not a large resource, but what this is extremely high quality. So when you're looking at lithium, you're looking at grade and the mineralogy, and about 90% of the lithium is contained in spodumene. And really, when you're looking at hard rock pegmatites, that's what the mineral that you're looking for is spodumene, because there's a known processing method for spodumene, and that's what the industry looks for. So you can see the zone of mineralization. The pegmatite dike here is the white rocks, and the black rocks are the country rocks that surround it. Most of this intercept, with the exception of narrow intervals on both sides, contains the spodumene very evenly distributed. So it's a very homogeneous unit, and so it's quite a very consistent ore body. It's vertical, so it'll be easy to mine, both open pit and underground. The project that we're looking at at Donner Lake, we're only looking at provincial approval for what we're trying to do on the mining side. And very importantly, in Manitoba and elsewhere in Canada, you need to have an exploration agreement in place with the First Nations. And we've had an exploration agreement with the Saugeen First Nation, a new one starting in April 2021. But we were actually one of the first juniors in Manitoba to have an exploration agreement with the First Nation. And so we're pleased to have them as a partner, and think that's going to make our development timeline much more efficient. And so we have a resource to start building on and looking at designing and permitting a mining project. Here's the numbers in the resource. We divided into open pit and underground, about 2 million tons in open pit. See here the grade. The grade is quite good. We've done quite a bit of work on metallurgical work and recoveries, and we're seeing excellent recovery rates, over 70% by flotation. The resource is divided into two areas: the main dike and the northwest dike, which are a little more than a kilometer apart, and they're both open at depth. So we believe that we can expand those resources. There's just a long section of the two dikes and the wireframes for those. Again, just to mention that these dikes are quite vertical, so when you do get into an underground mining situation, that's the optimal orientation of the ore body for underground mining. As I mentioned, the initial metallurgy is quite good. We've done a number of phases of work. The initial met tests were done by XPS, which is the Glencore lab in Sudbury. Again, we had good recoveries. We believe flotation is going to be the best method for recovery, and both Tanco and True North Mill utilize flotation circuits. And we've done work on composite samples from both deposits. We've also done some test work with Tanco at their mill, and this is a picture of one of our geologists at the Tanco mill watching the filter press the spodumene concentrate come off their circuit. So we're well down the road. We actually just completed another phase of met work just recently in the last month or so as part of the work that Primero's doing on the True North mill. So, we think we have a good solid handle on the metallurgy of this Donner Lake deposit. So just in terms of the timeline here that we're looking at and, what we want to do, just as just a bit of a sidebar, we think the market's really missing the fact of how long it will take to permit mines in Canada that are coming about as greenfield discoveries. The timelines are getting longer, not shorter, and they can be up to 10 years. And having to build a concentrator to float your lithium product and permit tailings and mine and infrastructure really is quite an arduous process. The lithium market is in quite the state of flux. It's been up and down, and we think it's going to go up again just as EV adoption accelerates again. So we're clearly in a trough right now, although the prices are still quite high. So we were looking at Manitoba, by having toll milling at Tanco and acquiring the rights for an existing mill that we could convert that has tailings. What will the timeline be? There's a very strong example. The last mine that was permitted in Manitoba was the Reed mine, and that was a toll milling operation where the ore was trucked about 80 kilometers to a mill. And from the time the maiden resource was released to the time a mining permit was received, it was a little over 2 years. And we're following this same path towards our permitting. And in fact, we have the same mining engineer. We're using the same consultants. We have the same legal firm working for us. And we're using the two-stage approach of an advanced exploration permit, which enables you to put in your site infrastructure. And then your next step is an Environment Act license, which is in effect your mining license. So, we think we have a good roadmap and we have the right team to do it. And, we've now released our, our resource, and we're working on our advanced exploration permit, which, we've been back and forth with the government a couple times. The bottom line is we hope to get this permit in time to do our bulk sample this winter. So that would require us to get this permit granted, sometime in the next 8 weeks. And, that would be a great success for us. And then following on that, later in 2024, we would want to submit our first mining permit application. And that would enable us, at this stage, we're looking at initial toll milling at the Tanco mine, because that's the simplest operation. And then from there, we would look at bringing on Bassett in a separate phase. And so, I can, say right now, we're hoping to get our mining permit, sometime late 2024, early 2025. So it's an aggressive schedule, but, as I say, we don't really have to build anything. We don't have to put in tailings. We're looking at a very simple, near surface mining operation to start. And this is, the lithium ore is high value ore, so it's worth doing. And we think we can scale up production. Just want to give you a quick overview of the two deals that we're looking at. At Tanco, which is south of Donner Lake, we signed a memorandum of understanding with Tanco, and we've worked very closely with them to come now working on a final definitive agreement, which hasn't really changed since the MOU. And we're looking at 200,000 tons per annum of ore, which basically would fill their whole mill, and that would be for 10 years. And then there's an opportunity to expand production to Tanco, as they've publicly announced that they're looking at expanding their plant and building a brand new plant for 1 million tons, in which case they would need our toll milling ore even more. At True North, which is to the north, we have a binding lease agreement, which was signed. We're just going through the due diligence period, which expires in the next couple of weeks. And that's an existing gold mill. And we brought in Primero to look at, what's the, capital cost, operating cost, can it be done to convert that mill to process spodumene. So those are the two deals that are on the table for us, the two processing options. We expect that we'll probably want to proceed with both. And, we're working hard at firming those up and doing the due diligence. This is an aerial view of the Tanko mine. It sits over top the world-class Burnick Lake pegmatite. They are currently producing lithium spodumene. So, very importantly, they have the workforce. They have the experience of producing spodumene. And, we anticipate signing a definitive agreement. We want to make sure we get it right and that it works for us. But we can say we're in very close contact with them. And we think that'll be a great opportunity for the company because that's, really near-term potential for production. We've completed ore testing and, we continue to work on this deal with Tanko. So that would really be the first step. And, we're looking forward to completing that. The True North mill, and here's an aerial photo of that. This is a part of the True North mill complex. It's a fully permitted gold mine and tailings. You can see the tailings facility in the back. For processing lithium, it has a current capacity of about 475,000 tons per annum. To build this mill today would cost you well north of $200 million. The capex for all these projects is, from what Primero and others are telling us, is just going up. It's more and more expensive to build these types of things and environmentally harder to permit. So here we're looking at something we're really substituting, gold ore for lithium ore, and lithium ore is kind of a good scenario because it doesn't have any sulfur in it, so it doesn't create acid rock drainage. So it's very benign. So we think that it's going to be much easier to permit than if we were trying to do gold or base metal type mining. So we're just in the final stages of our getting the report from Primero Group. We'll be announcing that soon as to the the feasibility, the cost, operating cost, and timeline for converting the True North mill. This is a couple of pictures from inside the mill. The mill was the flotation circuit is really one of the most important parts of the processing, and these are new flotation units, flotation cells very recently. So this mill is in very good shape. Ball mill is in good shape. Primero's been up and down and assessed all the equipment for us, and this mill is in good shape. But also if you look at the True North mill, there's a wonderful shop. There's a camp. There's a laydown area for ore. There's lots of room. It's in an area that Bissett is traditionally a gold mining town, so the locals want to see this facility reestablished. So it's really an excellent place and an opportunity with a good mill that operated as recently as last year. It was operating. So we think this is a wonderful opportunity and has significant capacity. And we'll be coming out with that results of that report fairly soon. And that deal is right now it's structured as an option, and we have to make certain payments, but for the scale of it's about $3 million over the next couple of years, and for the scale of this operation and what it would cost and time to replace, we think it's a win-win deal. 1911 will get a royalty and some payments as we run material through here. So the deal is structured so that to be a win-win for both parties. One thing we're continuing to do at Donner Lake is look for more ore and expand our resources. This is a picture of the geochemical map of the property. So it's about 15 kilometers strike length that we have in the property. The red areas are hot spots. That's where our main dike is, where we have part of our resource. Northwest Dike, we didn't have geochemical coverage. But these large geochemical anomalies are ones that we've identified and that we're now on the ground. It's our second season. We've got a local team of geologists and site techs working in the field, and that really is the only way to uncover these things. The geophysics helps somewhat, but we've made an investment in trying to find more ore, and we think this is going to culminate in a series of new drill targets, and we're looking forward to getting out on the ground drilling later this year or at the start of next year. And this is our Falcon West. This is what I showed earlier. This is 1 kilometer of a 70-kilometer greenstone belt. And what's significant about the Falcon West is, it was explored for lithium in the 1950s and tantalum as recently as 2000, and there was some holes drilled in 2014. But this core area is about 1 kilometer long. So this is called the starter area, and this is where most of the historical drilling was done. There was a historical resource here in this core area, about 250,000 tons at almost 1.8% lithium. And you can see some of the intervals here. You get kind of a high-grade cap on these pegmatites, so they're very fractionated. We also announced here that you get extremely high cesium values, up to 17%. Anything over 10% is like world class. Cesium is very rare, but it's a very interesting metal. And importantly, Tanco has a cesium circuit, one of the few cesium circuits in the world that's operating up at Burnick Lake. And, they have a history of going out and buying even small amounts of cesium ore in various places in the world. So what cesium tells you is that when you're in a pegmatite, it's very highly fractionated, and that if you have a cesium zone, you're going to have a lithium zone as well. So we know there's lithium in this belt. We have the entire belt. We've got about a 1 kilometer area. The intervals in this area are within 20 meters of surface. So this target is just screaming to be drilled. And, we're just doing the consultation with, there's 4 First Nations in this instance. So a little more complicated, but we're working our way through it, and very optimistic that we can have a drill at Falcon West, early next year. And, we think this has got great upside. And, if we have some good success here drilling, it really unlocks the whole belt, because we have the whole belt staked. And, we know of other showings in the area. So, this is great blue sky for Grid. And, we think this is going to be a super long-term exploration property for the company. So, we can't wait to get out there. And again, this is a little over an hour by road from Tanco. So, this could be toll milled. We would hope to get to scale. We could develop our own project here, but you never know. But because it's such high grade ore that we're seeing, really, we think this project has got a great opportunity to contribute economically to what we're doing. The other point I just want to make is it's really hard to go from an exploration company to production. But if you look at the companies that have successfully done it, the re-rating, an increase in market capitalization is really quite substantial. Core Lithium, they started off, the Australian company, their market has retraced to about 800 million Canadian, I believe, currently. But they were recently about a 25 million market cap company, similar to Grid. A huge re-rating in the company as they got towards production, and that increase, a lot of it's diluted by the fact that they issued so many more shares. But you can see the average here is just really significant increase in the market cap. And so we're trying to, do the same thing, get into production, grow production very quickly. I'm not saying that we're not going to be able, we're going to have to obviously issue more equity. It's going to, just the nature of the business, it's very capital intensive. But we're going to try to limit this as much as possible so that we can capture as much of the upside for our shareholders as we can. And we think that by getting into production, as soon as possible, that we'll be able to see a big re-rating of the company. So that's really our goal. That's what we're trying to achieve. A lot of moving parts for the company, but we have a very low cost base on our assets, and to the extent the market is difficult like it is now, we just have to be a little more careful and not live within our means and try to develop the project as quickly as possible. I can say Tanco is about as low as the capex and opportunity to get into production. Just the capital's low. We're looking at simple open pit. We don't have to build a mill. There'll be some capex to get the project going, but very, very low. And the permitting's really inexpensive. So we want to use the cash flow from Tanco to fund what we're doing at the set as well. So we think that's why you would somebody would look at a company like Grid and say, well, why would I want to invest? You want to do it because Grid gives you the opportunity to re-rate based on getting into production, but also re-rate based on exploration. And as we start to unlock the potential of something like Falcon West, and people can see we have a belt scale project with really nice numbers and great opportunity to expand. They say, geez, they can do it two ways: exploration and production. And the production is going to be in the next few years, not 10 years down the road. I won't really jump on our copper nickel project other than we think there's a lot of potential. We have a 40 million ton resource, and we've recently added some key pieces here and here so that we have the lion's share of the the south arm and the north arm of the greenstone belt. This is actually a lithium property here. You can see that's right next to our our base metal project. Tanco mine is here right next to our the Macwa project, and there's good opportunities for synergy, permitting, infrastructure, that type of thing, that one project to help the other. So we want to make some success of our lithium project in the near term, and then look at how we finance the Macwa Mayville project. There's the resource table. It's about 40 million tons right now, and that's going to grow. And it's a good grade open pit material there. So lots of metallurgy done. So we think it's a good project, and we're just trying to focus on lithium for now. And we also have some high potential projects in northern Manitoba, like analogous to the Rag nickel belt, and we're not doing much with those now, but it's part of a portfolio approach for our nickel projects. So just to summarize, we've gone all in on our lithium projects. In a very short time, established a resource. We think that resource can grow. We have blue sky in our Falcon West project. We're well down the road. We've got 2 milling options, which we think will enable us to get in production way faster, and certainly differentiate us from other lithium developers in North America. We have upside optionality from our copper nickel assets, and lots of things going on, in terms of re-rating, and that's going to be our permitting, definitive deal with Tanco, our feasibility studies, our work on True North Mine to show the potential there, and of course our ongoing drilling. So we think there's lots going on with Grid, and we got lots of balls in the air, but we're very committed to what we're doing, and we think that it's a great opportunity, lots of potential, and a great place to be to working on a mining project in Manitoba in Canada. So that's really it for me. As I say, we're optimistic about the lithium market despite the downturn, and we're big believers in the EV narrative and how that's going to play out over the next year. And if that does happen, we're going to see a great opportunity for Grid, and if we're in production, I think a great upside for our shareholders.
Great, thanks a lot, Robin, for the great presentation. So now we'll turn to the Q&A portion of the webinar, and just a reminder to everybody on the line that you can type your questions in at any point. With that said, we have had a number come in already, so I'll just kind of start off here. Maybe just on some background, maybe this person's not familiar with the lithium market, but just where are prices for spodumene right now?
All right, Brandon, you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll answer that. So kind of spodumene concentrate right now is around $22.50. 6 months ago, that was above $5,000 a ton. So prices are down kind of 70% a year, but $22.50 is still well above where lithium was even 2 years ago. So it's still significantly higher than it used to be. And, from our perspective, we do think there's additional upside from here, but even the current price, even with it down 70%, it still, makes for robust lithium projects.
Great. Okay. And I guess kind of some follow-up on that. I guess one person's wondering how the relationship or ownership, rather, of the project being the 75% impacts inferred resources in terms of tons of the spodumene con.
Yeah, I mean, we state the resource in terms of 100% ownership. The 75-25 is governed by a traditional joint venture structure. And, over time, the joint venture partner essentially has to say, well, are we going to participate in the ongoing development? And if they do so, then they have to fund 25% of the costs. So it does affect the project economics, but that was, we got quite a bit of early financing from Lithium Royalty Corp when we started. And that 75-25, I think, could stay the same, or, it could change. So, but, I think overall, it's certainly a big enough percentage of ownership for us to grab most of the economic upside of the project.
Great. Okay. So maybe just on the corporate side, a few questions here. Just wondering, I guess, thoughts of splitting the lithium and nickel copper assets into separate companies.
Certainly crossed our mind. I think the answer is very likely at some point, but you want to do that from a position of strength, right? This is not the market to do that because financing's hard to come by. So it's always I think a question of do we want to do it, which there's a good economic case to do it in terms of the market focus, but also the timing. The timing is important too. So when and so it's something we're keeping our eye on.
Right. Okay. And in that same vein, I guess just one person wondering, is the sale of nickel assets an option to fund the lithium program down the road, or is it more you'd look to spin it out? Is there anything that's one way you're leaning or not? I don't think
certainly as of today, we wouldn't get what we think they're worth. So our job is to take these assets and develop them and turn them into viable mining projects and then sell them. But so there's always the right time. But obviously you could look at a sale price. It depends on what you get for it versus a spin out.
Yeah.
So both can be beneficial to shareholders.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. So just turning here, we have a question wondering if you'll be drilling this winter. If so, how many meters and at what cost per meter?
I believe we will be drilling this winter. Our cost per meter it's ranged from $150 to $250 per meter. Depends on the site, and it's really more about the intangibles, which resource drilling, for example, is cheaper because you're not moving the drill very far between drill holes. Whereas exploration drilling, sometimes there's a lot of movement, so that's more expensive. So that really impacts the cost per meter. So that's kind of the range, 150 to 250. We're just firming up our, what it is we want to drill. We have more work to do on resource drilling. We think that those deposits can go deeper, for sure. We want to drill Falcon West, and then we also have exploration targets. So we haven't determined exactly what it is we'll be doing this winter, but we'll be doing something. I mean, the market is not as friendly right now, so we and our stock price is down, so we got to be careful about how we spend our current working capital, but certainly some drilling is going to be completed.
Right. Okay. And with that, for Falcon West, have you submitted the application for permits there yet?
Yes.
Okay.
So the way the process works in Manitoba is you submit your permit, and then the government tells you who the First Nations are that you're supposed to consult with, and one of the First Nations has already come back and said, sure, fine, no problem. The two other First Nations have not really gotten involved, so the government said if they don't come back, that's fine. For this type of activity, we wouldn't not give you a permit. There's one First Nation that we're still dealing with that has a very robust kind of community focused approach to the project, and they want us to do these meetings, and we've done those meetings, and I can say we've got a good dialogue going, and we expect to get an approval on that, but it's just taking a little bit of time. So we certainly haven't hit any roadblocks, and we're well down the road. So we're optimistic it could happen, get our approval pretty soon.
Right. Okay. And then another question here. Just wondering if you'll be receiving any government funding along the way. I assume that's during development.
Yeah, let me ask Brandon to answer that one.
Yeah, so we've had preliminary discussions with the federal government and provincial government, and in terms of financing, the mine at Donner, there's a 30% investment tax credit that comes into effect in January of 2024. So, for critical minerals development, we're eligible for that. We'd also be eligible for that at Bassett. There's also additional government pools that could be available for Bassett. One of them is the Strategic Innovation Fund, SIF. So, it's very preliminary, but, it's possible that Bassett as a reconfiguration, it's kind of an innovative form of, getting critical minerals out of the ground, could be eligible as well. And, anywhere from, say, 20 to 30% of that CapEx could be eligible under that program. So, there's a decent likelihood that we'll get some sort of help on the government side, which significantly reduces the risk of, material equity financing dilution. And I think that's an important thing for investors in Canada. If you have projects close to development, there is this new ITC, the investment tax credit, and there are a number of pools now of government funding which are available as well.
Perfect. Okay. Another question here, just wondering if you could provide a range of costs involved with retrofitting the True North mill. Is there anything public that you can discuss at this point?
There's nothing public, so I might just defer to, we'll have something announced on that fairly soon. So we're just firming, we want to be sure when we publicly announce those numbers that they're kind of firm. But we'll have a pretty good cost. It's going to be, the one thing I can say is that the capital intensity for, establishing an operation, the amount of production and the capital cost is going to be really attractive to the industry, because these new mills are really expensive to build, and so the capital intensity of the reconfiguration is going to be very attractive. So I can say that it's almost order of magnitude lower, but let us get back to you on the specifics of that when that information's firmed up. But we think that's going to be a big advantage for the project.
Perfect. Okay. And I guess similarly, I'm not sure if there's any kind of rule of thumb that you can maybe provide for this investor, but is there a certain ratio of spodumene concentrate that you can expect from tonnage that goes through the mill?
Brandon, you wanted to answer that?
Yeah, so I guess the one way to think about it is, the traditional concentrate 6%. So, our ore is 1.4%. And then, our recoveries on network are, say, 75%. So, if you take that factor, you're kind of six times. So basically 6 tons of ore will get you 1 ton of spodumene concentrate. And if the mill is 500,000, is 475,000 ton a year, you can do the math on maybe what that looks like in terms of spodumene production, anywhere from, we're still obviously working through all this, but those are the kind of the high level numbers you can use to kind of get to spodumene concentrate.
Yeah, that would be somewhere in the range, I think, 80,000.
Yeah.
80 to 90,000. And, it's 1,000 tons and a ton is, around 3,000 Canadian. So, that's a pretty good sized business for a company like ours, and our market cap and what we're aspiring to. So, it's big projects are, 150,000 and, plus, and between Tanco and Bissett, we'd be, well over 100,000, so, we're starting to be getting up there in terms of an important, producer. So that's where we're really trying to grow to as an initial stage, and then grow from there.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Turning to Falcon West again here, just a question, wondering if there's interest there because of cesium.
Yeah, I mean, in our discussions with Tanco, they have a cesium circuit, and they're really actually very bullish on cesium because it has a potential use in the new generation of solar panels. Like a new technology uses cesium in it. So they think the market, which is pretty small for the cesium metal right now, it could really grow. And it's very rare. Like, it's hard to find any appreciable amounts of cesium. So yeah, they're really interested. Most of our discussions with Tanco have really been focused on the toll milling, because that's really the first thing we want to nail down. But as I say, there's only a couple cesium plants in the world, and one of them's a little over an hour away by road. So, and the stuff we're looking at is super high grade. They're actually doing some permit applications are in with the province to upgrade the plan and allow them to produce new forms of cesium, new products. So I think everything we see is that they think it's a business they want to grow, and we've looks just in the number of historic holes that we just recently assayed and announced, there was some really zinger cesium values. So yeah, it's kind of a bit of an outlier right now, but could be really important for us. So yeah.
Okay. So I think we've gone through basically all the questions. The last one here that I can see is just if there's any update or timeline towards listing on the ASX. A couple of people wondering about that.
Yeah, we put we amended the articles that we needed to do if we want to list in the ASX. We're looking to get a in principle application approved that would give us the ability to launch a prospectus if we want to. With the market conditions right now, I think we'll probably defer to the decision till later this year or perhaps into next year. The market kind of goes quiet over Christmas, but the market in Australia is pretty buoyant for lithium. People have made a lot of money. There's a lot of interest. relative to North America, and we have a big shareholder group, very knowledgeable, that invested in the company, and that's very supportive of what we're doing, and adds a lot of value. So we think that it could be a really viable and value-added step for the company. Final decision has not been made, but the pieces are in place if we do want to proceed.
Yeah, and just the one other thought on the ASX is that historically the valuations for lithium developers and producers is higher than kind of what you see in Canada. So if we do think our stock undervalued, it's maybe one avenue to approach to realize some value from a group that assigns higher value to lithium development stories, particularly stories that are getting close to production.
Perfect. Okay. So I think we're coming up on the hour here, and I think we're through all the questions. So with that, I think we'll wrap up. So I'd like to thank Robin and Brandon from Grid Metals for taking the time today to host a webinar with Red Cloud Securities, and thank you to everybody on the line for tuning in.